going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Miko, joined by my guy, Morgan Cannon. Morgan, it's been a long day, but I'm happy to be here with you breaking down some football film because the Lions have the Cowboys this week. I'm ready for some payback. And I think going through the film that we have today, we're going to be able to expose, some cracks in Dallas's defense, as well as we're still going to talk about, their offense, because there are still some elements to that, specifically CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, that the Lions have to contend with, defensively. But again, tired, exhausted. Hopefully this comes out really good for you guys. Hopefully we're articulate enough in breaking down what we're seeing here on film. But Morgan, I think this is going to be a really good week of football for the Lions. Like I said, hopefully getting some payback after how last season's game ended.
Yeah, man, we got to get some get back, to be honest with you. And yeah, it's been a long week, to be honest. Like I feel that in my bones. So I'm excited. Tomorrow's Friday. We're filming this Thursday night. Gonna finish the Tigers game. Hopefully that ends well.
Yep.
But yeah, excited to get into the Cowboys film. Another big game. The Lions nationally televised, America's game of the week, all that. So buckle up. Most of America's gonna be watching again, and like I said, it's time to get some get back. Since 2013, we haven't beat them in the regular season, so yeah, it's time.
Listen, I would love a repeat of what happened when we played Seattle, right? We hadn't beat Seattle in a while, finally got that monkey off our back, so it would be nice to do the same thing with Dallas. And yeah, this is going to be an interesting scout the opponent. Over the last couple of videos we've done, we've given a pretty fair evaluation of the teams of the Lions have played. We've talked glowingly about, elements of their offense or their defense. We're far enough into the season at this point, Morgan, 5 games under some of these teams' under these teams' belts at this point, where I think it's fair to point out weaknesses as well. And that's where we're going to start today with the Cowboys. And a big glaring weakness for them is their run defense, right?
Yeah, man, they're have some tough issues against the run. Their personnel, when they're healthy, they're good, especially against the pass. You have Parsons, you have DeMarcus Lawrence. Sounds like, Parsons' word is he's not going to be back until after their bye week. Their bye week is after they play the Lions, week 6. So yeah, it's gonna be tough because they're gonna be without them. And when you turn on the tape, I watched 2 games in total for the Dallas for the Cowboys, particularly the defense, because we know what that offense is about. To be honest with you, offensive line maybe taking a couple steps back through the years, but we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, man, personnel wise, it might be a little rough. If the Lions can get going on the ground, it could be a pretty long day for Dallas defensively. So
absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump into this first play. Like you said, you looked at 2 games, this one being the Cowboys going up against Cleveland. And this first play here, the Browns got a pretty big runoff on Dallas on this play.
Yeah, man, this is just, you see this a lot on tape, right? People just getting blown off the ball. So 94, that's Marshawn Kneeland, I believe from Western Michigan, right? The prospect, a lot of us liked him. So it's just, you're getting relocated, man. You see this when you turn on the Lions tape too, when they do this to other teams. And what happens is when offenses can just like cave in a whole side of the line, Lions fans should be familiar with it. The Lions do it a lot, right? This is why. So the Cowboys give up 135 yards a game on the ground. They're worst in the league in EPA per play. It's pretty rough. It's tough when you turn it on. They have players, man. I don't want to make it sound like they don't have players. They have Eric Kendricks. He knows how he wants that defense to be played. But I think this. What do you think? I think this looks pretty rough when you turn on the tape and you start seeing some of these trends.
Well, yeah, especially from a Cleveland offense that has, again, not been very prolific so far. This is a run game that doesn't feature Nick Chubb at this point. So it's not like, you're going up against one of the better run offenses in the NFL. This is just, again, the Browns having a really well-timed double team, getting bodies on your defensive lineman. And again, it's just an easy push. And like you said, they do have some quality players on this defensive line. You talk about Michael Parsons, you talk about DeMarcus Lawrence. Mozzie Smith is someone that has been playing really well out of Michigan in his young career. But the weakness to some of these players is that while they are very good in collapsing the pocket and getting to the quarterback on passing downs, they're not always the best when it comes down to defending the run. That's probably been like one of the few criticisms that, NFL analysts have when it comes down to breaking down Micah Parsons, is just that, like, hey, as prolific as he is as getting to the quarterback, he's not the guy that you're expecting to set an edge and be able to disrupt the run game all the time. If he can get there with speed, it's awesome. He can get into the backfield, be very disruptive, yes. But if you're asking him to literally just take on an offensive lineman head up in the run game, that rarely goes his way.
Yeah, and he can set an edge. It just depends on, who he's playing against. But like you said, he makes his money bending edges, bending corners, and getting to quarterbacks. And he's a demon when he's healthy doing that, man. He's one of the best in football. A very unique pass rusher, too, to your point. They have Linval Joseph, if you guys remember Linval from his time with the Vikings. Massive human being, but he's getting up there in age. So what is he, like 36 now? Yeah, 36 years old. So good for him, still playing. He's had a really long, successful career. But personnel-wise, like I talked about before, it's going to be tough. The Lions are fresh. It sounds like Frank Ragnow is going to be a go. So you're getting your best five back. And I want to see what I turned on the tape and saw when I'm, just Mozzie Smith getting relocated. He's been good. He came on last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But some of these games, they gave up 274 yards against Baltimore. Another 190 versus who was it? New Orleans, when they got beat. It was 44-19. They got beat by New Orleans in week 2. So teams can definitely get it going, man. And then it almost becomes like an avalanche effect, right, Miko? Like when you're breaking off 10 yards of pop, it's like, holy, we're getting beat over the head here as a defense.
Well, and it's another way of just drawing the game out, right? Because then the defense has to stay out there. You're not necessarily hitting them for big 50, 60-yard bombs that obviously the Lions can do as well. But if you're just grinding the game out, running the ball for 7, 8 yards a carry type of thing, that starts to wear everyone down. And yeah, you're going to be trying to rotate bodies in and out, but you only have so many defensive linemen. And when you're talking about a defensive line that's already sustained some injuries, like you mentioned, DeMarcus Lawrence is on IR. Micah Parsons is probably not going to be back until after the bye. Nealon just, I think, was put on IR as well. So,
Yep.
You're already down 3 quality defensive linemen that already play heavy snaps for you. And like you said, when you look at the teams that they've gone against that they've given up big yards, while the Lions don't have a Derrick Henry, no one does, right? They do have
David
Montgomery. And David Montgomery is a wrecking ball. They may not have, again, Alvin Kamara is kind of a one-of-one as well for the Saints, but we do have a Jahmyr Gibbs who has a very similar run style. So when you look at that from a Lions perspective, those are the types of things when you just look at the running back position alone, you start to see where the Lions can probably take advantage and get out to a pretty big lead against Dallas. But then you also look at just blocking schemes, right? Like we talked about with the first play. Okay, cool. Cleveland goes out there, they double team Nealon, and they get some really strong push. You look at the Saints game in this play that we're about to look at right here, it's not necessarily a double team. It's just a simple hey, we're going to block you with the tight end, and then we're also going to have another lineman come rolling out of the backfield. This is something that the Lions do pretty often as well, right, Morgan?
Yeah, so this is a nice little pin and pull concept the Lions will use a lot. They'll use Laporta, they'll use St. Brown or JMO to seal that defensive end or the linebacker or whoever's down there near the line of scrimmage as the force player. You seal him, you pin him, and then you pull your tackle, your guard, or whoever. You get them out in the space, Penei Sewell, hopefully. The Lions schematically throw everything at you as a running opponent. They're going to run power, they're going to run zone concepts, they're going to do stuff like this where they get people into space, end arounds, you name it. They're going to throw everything at you. So you really, it makes you defend the whole field all the time, which makes it tough for defenses. And it's kind of why the Lions offense is as efficient as it is, because they do things like this. So yeah, very similar to Alvin Kamara. A lot of people have had that conversation about Jahmyr Gibbs, man. I think they're a little bit different players, not a one-to-one comparison. But Kamara had a good game against them, man. Went off, and he was a big part of the reason. And I want to say, if Cowboys fans are watching this, they're like, oh my God, do you guys think we suck? You guys have players that I like, man. You got DeMarvion Overshown, who I really like. Eric Kendricks is getting up there in age, but still a good player. And again, he knows exactly. It's Mike Zimmer in Dallas, right? Their DC, I want to say. So yeah, he's going to know how to run that defense. Yeah, it's Mike Zimmer. I'm having a little bit, like I said, it's been a long.
I was going to say, listen, Dallas be having these random coaches changes, and I cannot keep track. I know Mike McCarthy is still down there for some reason, but yes.
Yeah. So Zimmer, though, you guys remember, played at or coached at Minnesota for a long time. So
Hmm.
The defense has the capability, but it's going to be tough to hold up against, in my opinion, the best offensive line of football.
Yeah, and that's
This next
kind of
one's a
where
good
I'm.
one too. Oh,
And
go ahead.
like you said, like so you talk about the running back talent, you talk about the offensive line talent, and that is there in terms of running the football. And then you have concepts like that where you're talking about like a pin and pull where the Lions, like you said, will do that with Sam Laporta, or they'll do it with Amon-Ra St. Brown, or they'll do it with Jamo. Like it becomes an extra thing that you have to worry about because you know the skill players are going to block as well, right? It's one thing if you know like, hey, this offensive line is going to hit us in the mouth. It's another thing where you're like, man, even if they get out on the edge, I have to worry about Amon Ra or I have to worry about JMO, like still trying to make a block on some of these corners, which to your point again, they have some talented corners over there in Dallas as well. They're playing really well in the pass game. There's a reason why we're only talking about the run game because I think when it comes down to defending the pass against some of these teams that they played against, they've done that, relatively well. And I think this is why another reason why it would be advantageous for the Lions to really just hammer home when it comes down to running the football so that you don't have to challenge the secondary and so that you don't have to put Jared Goff in situations where he potentially is going to turn the ball over 1 to 2 times in a game.
Yep. I think, ideally you make this game like the Seattle game, like you said, have Goff throw the ball 20 to 25 times, run the ball 35 or 40, control the clock, keep it moving. Because, they got Trayvon Diggs. You got Malik Hooker back there, Donovan Wilson, some good players. Jordan Lewis, Detroit
I
native.
think Jordan Lewis is having a pretty good season this year. So like
Jordan been a
there's
really
some
good
things.
nickel, man.
Yeah,
Like
and
he's
so and they're feisty out there, right? In Dallas. Like it's
Jordan
not like
talks
it's just a bunch
crazy.
of finesse. Like they are some
Yeah.
physical
No.
corners over there. And again,
Emmanuel
not to say that
Warrior
JMO.
starting for them.
Oh yeah, right. And
Mm-hmm.
so like it's not like the Lions don't have physical receivers either. Like they couldn't handle it, but why ignore a blatant again deficiency in their defense right now, which is again defending the run. You should at least be testing that early. And I said this to you before we started recording. Like I think if Ben Johnson has that mindset of going in, like no, we're just gonna test them early. Like I don't care if it's the whole first quarter, where it's like, hey, Jared might only throw it 6 or 7 times. If it's again, if you're able to get into these, third and manageable type situations, like we're gonna see if they've addressed their running deficiencies. Because while Dallas is near the bottom of the league when it comes down to defending the run and giving up yards, Detroit's near the top in terms of running the football. So again, that's something that I feel like should be the first immediate test if the Lions, whether it's them receiving the ball or the first offensive opportunity they get, that should be the mindset of like, let's see if they can actually stop it. Let's see if they've figured out anything in terms of how they contain our run game. Because if not, this is going to be a long game for Dallas if the Lions are able to run the ball efficiently. That turns into play action. And then that turns into, again, Jared Goff being able to take those 50, 60-yard bombs to JMO or Amon-Ra or Sam Laporta.
Yeah, completely agree, man. I think you go in there, if you get the ball, this might be one of the rare games where I want the ball first just to set the tone.
Just to set the tone.
I think it could be a drive like what was it, the first drive against the Cardinals maybe, where they just shoved it up their noses pretty quickly. Yeah. I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, this next one's a good one too, because I hate to pick on Mozzie Smith, man, 58, but Michigan grad, but you see him here. And so Baltimore goes tempo, and don't get it twisted. They have a really good interior offensive line with Tyler Linderbaum, one of the better centers in football, but you just see him get just moved, and it's tough. Like not everyone can be DJ Reader and just not move an inch off a double team, but you can't have this happen either, because it just creates giant running lanes, and then you get Derrick Henry running downhill, and no one wants to tackle Derrick Henry when he's running downhill. It's not fun.
Not at all. And like you mentioned, right, this is after tempo. So again, this is like after you've already worn their defense down probably a bit. You haven't been able to sub out, and they probably already have hit you with a couple run plays on this drive. And then this is the one that really just like pops for 20 plus yards.
And like you said, see this. Get to the line quick and try to gash them here and there.
Exactly, especially when you have, again, the types of running backs that the Lions have. And like you said, Mozzie Smith, this wasn't the first time that he got picked on with a double team. Like they came back with another play, and they were just like, hey, he's not handling these double teams well. Let's keep hitting him with it.
Man, this is tough. So it's third quarter, second and 4. They're getting blown off the ball. Like I think the score is 27-7 at this point. Dallas is getting ran, and I got to think. I don't know if Mozzie said "we" here, but he started swinging around. Like, that's tough, man. That's tough. And again, I want to say Baltimore's offensive line is good. They're well coached under Harbaugh. Like, it's always been a good unit. I don't know who their O-line coach is off the top, but it's got to be a good coach because they always play like this. And I hope the Lions are watching this and thinking, yeah, because we certainly can do this. We can create some nice highlights for our offensive line too. That's right, offensive line highlights. It's a new thing. We're making it a thing.
And like we said, like we talked about earlier, right? It becomes a very big problem too when, like, again, you're missing tackles like they do here, right? Number 6 has an opportunity to wrap up Derrick Henry. Obviously, not many people can tackle Derrick Henry one-on-one, but while David Montgomery isn't as big as Derrick Henry, he's just as equally difficult to tackle one-on-one. David Montgomery has already won 2 angry run sectors. This could be a week that he could get a third because he's just been running so aggressively. And then, like we talked about before, you start getting wide receivers blocking downfield. Nelson Aguilar down here blocking Trayvon Diggs is the thing that also allows Derrick Henry to get into the end zone here. So it's a lot to deal with when you have an offense like the Lions do, that you have aggressive runners, you have dominant offensive line that can really generate push, and then you have the skill players with that mindset that they understand, like, hey, we are a part of the run game as well. We have a responsibility to block on the outside. You add all that together, and I think if you're Mike Zimmer, if you're Mike McCarthy, like, you're trying to hopefully get your defense up to realize, like, hey, we have to set up a wall. We have to be able to not get gashed and not get driven, out of running lanes like this. But I'm not sure how they do it, Morgan, with their current personnel.
Yeah, I'm sure they're talking about it all week. Like, hey, they got a good offensive line over in Detroit and yada, yada. And it's going to be tough if we got to come with our, big boy pants on, or however they're going to phrase it. But yeah, I think if the Lions can get going on the ground, it could be a long day for Dallas defensively. I know we're about to flip to offense, and that's a different story. The offense still has a lot of venom to it, but it's a good matchup, we'll say, for the Lions, in my opinion, from their offense to the Cowboys defense.
Yeah, I think so. And I think when you start to flip it over and you start to look over at the Cowboys offense versus the Lions defense, I still, for the most part, would give the advantage to the Lions defense, especially how they've been playing early in this season. But yeah, like you said, there's still some teeth to this offense. Maybe not as many as there used to be back in the day. Yes, they do have Zeke back, but it's not the Ezekiel Elliott that we've known in the past. Their run game is just like their run defense is lagging behind. Their run offense isn't very prolific either, but we know how Dan Campbell works, Morgan, right? Like, he's still going to preach stopping the run first. And they're going to do everything they can to make this team one-dimensional. The only kind of issue with that is that one dimension can be very good when you have Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. And we saw that a couple times last year when the Lions played the Cowboys, specifically looking at this 92-yard bomb that Dak was able to deliver to CeeDee. That really kind of flipped things in this game, because initially, like, Dallas was kind of struggling getting things going on the offensive end, but a play like this where Derek Barnes misses a sack, CeeDee's able to kind of freelance a little bit, and Dak shows the arm talent to be able to get this out there, it starts looking like J-Mo from last week.
Yeah, man, this is one of many rough games for Cam Sutton down the stretch last year. You got Ghost of Christmas Past, Ezekiel Elliott, like you talked about. So wearing number 15, going back to the Ohio State days, you wish, buddy.
I was gonna say he's wishing he was back in that body
that
and
body.
Performing that way. But yeah, this is the stuff that, like, the Lions have to kind of contend with. And again, this is a broken play that, again, hopefully this time around the Lions can close the door on a type of play like that where you're able to get Dak Prescott down, hopefully get a safety, and you don't have to worry about a play like that happening. But even on the other end of that, like, you still want your corners to be able to play soundly. The number of times where Cam Sutton ended up on the turf in this game, either missing a tackle or again, like you said, having amazing footwork and just kind of making him touch grass a lot. Something that, like, I'm hoping doesn't happen this year when you have the likes of a Carlton Davis, when you have Terrion Arnold out there, who seem to be a little more technical savvy when it comes down to their technique and being able to match up man-to-man with some of these corners or with some of these receivers.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Terrion comes away with another DPI or two this game, just because it is CD and he's going to get calls. But in my opinion, this would be an interesting way to look at it, because I don't know if they're going to have Carlton Davis travel. Like, he was traveling with DK Metcalf, which
Yeah.
I liked because that's Carl, like that's a big physical receiver. Here, I'm not so sure. I think Terrion and Carlton could both at least try.
Yeah. I mean,
Kirby, I hope Kirby's up for this game, man. He came up. It's Thursday. Came down with popped up on the injury report with a hamstring. He was limited today, so because this is a game, in my opinion, where you need Kirby back there.
I was going to say, this is a game where you would definitely, I agree. You would definitely want Kirby back there. I don't think you see Carlton travel like they did with DK. And I think because CD is not a physical type of receiver, like he's physically imposing with his size and his athleticism, but he doesn't have a physical aspect to his game like DK does. Like when we talked about DK, we talked about like, hey, he's going to try
Different
and Devo
breed.
your corner out there. And you need someone to have that type of mentality. CD is way more technical. So I do think you could allow yourself to kind of just line up and just play man-to-man matchup with whichever side he is. If he's in the slot, allowing Brian Branch to maybe take him or allowing Amik Robertson to man up with him. Last year, like if he had a couple like snaps, lining up against CD, and if he didn't fare very well, but I would have much more confidence in Brian Branch or even Amik Robertson in doing that. So I don't think you'll see, at least especially when he goes to the slot, because CD goes to the slot quite a bit. About 50% of his snaps so far have been in the slot. So Amik's been playing great. I would be perfectly fine if they were just like, hey, when he goes in the slot, we're leaving him to Amik. When he's on the outside, whichever side he's on is who is responsible for manning up against him.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's probably your best bet. And I think bracketing him makes sense. Like, I like that Aaron Glenn isn't overly afraid to commit and be like, nah, we're not gonna allow this person to get off, and someone else is gonna have to beat us. It's almost like a basketball approach in that manner as well, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you. I think bracket him. I hope Kirby's up. Kirby, if you're watching this, make sure that hamstring's loose, man. Just chill out, play some games. Because we
I was gonna say, get plenty of heat and ice on that thing. Make sure it's getting stretched out. Whatever he needs to do to be ready to play.
That's a big play offense. Like I want Kirby up for this game because Dak's going to try it, especially if they know the Lions are about to score a lot of points. Like the first couple of drives are getting football shoved up their nose. They're going to have to start chucking it down the field.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last two plays we looked at, like we said, we had the 92-yard bomb, which is basically not finishing on a play, and then obviously like Cam Sutton not being able to stay sticky in coverage. Second play, Cam Sutton not being able to make a tackle in a short route, right? The Lions can't allow those types of things to happen because, again, CD is someone who is capable of picking up big yards after catch, so you want to be able to limit him in that space. If he's going to catch it short, you need your corners to be there to tackle. That's something that Terrion and Carlson have shown a great ability to do, as well as Amik Robertson and Brian Branch. Like, they are sure tacklers, so hopefully, again, different corners, if those same type of plays get made, hopefully we're talking about 5-yard gains instead of 20 to 25-yard gains. But the other thing that you have to worry about with CD, which is while he does have 50% of his snaps in the slot, the other 50% are him out wide. And one of the reasons they will still line him up out wide is because he's a great route runner. He has the great ability of creating separation. So this is where I think Carlton Davis will shine, because I think he's much more smooth and much more solid in his back pedal and much more controlled. And you won't see this type of separation happening on comeback routes.
Yeah, and at this point, Cam Sutton is just terrified of his long speed, right? Like, so that's why he's so quick to bail out of his back pedal, and then he slips. And really, it's just I love that route from CD. And he's a technician, man. That's why he's the total package, because you talked about his yak ability. He's tough to get on the ground. Lions defense has been good at running to the football, like rallying to the football. So that definitely needs to continue, because he's someone, like you talked about, can break a tackle and turn a 6 or 7 yard gain into a 40-yard gain, and then Dallas is in business. So yeah, if we're not making this out to be like that they're one dimensional, like the entire passing game has like a lot of like good attributes to it, but CD is the difference maker in my opinion this week if Dallas were to pull off a win here.
Yeah, I mean, again, CD's having a really good year. Jalen Tolbert is having a pretty good breakout year, especially with Brandon Cooks not being available, who also went on IR, so they are missing some talent. Again, in their skill position, and Brandon Cooks is CD is a big play threat. I would say Brandon Cooks is like their big threat player, right? Like, he's the guy that they're typically looking at to go for 20 plus yards because he has that long speed and things like that. And he cooked Detroit last year for a couple big plays and definitely got a touchdown in that game last year as well. So them being down Brandon Cooks and not having the greatest run game, and Dak hasn't been using his tight ends as much as he's probably used in the past either. So like I think there are elements within their offense that just like the Lions could take advantage of. We know Hutch has basically feasted every time he's played the Cowboys. I think he's had 3 sacks in every game that he's played against them. So you add in that element. I think the Lions are much better on the interior of their defensive line than they've ever been in those other 2 matchups. So you talk about DJ Reader and Aleem McNeil. You talk about Levi having a really good, strong year, especially when it comes down to rushing the passer. And then you have Josh Pascal that's been playing really well. So you look at that defensive line against this Cowboys offensive line. I think they'll be able to get a lot of push in the pass game. I think they'll be able to limit things, almost erase the run game for the most part, as long as that's the focus. Much like how I said with Ben Johnson, like the goal with Ben Johnson is like not to get cute. Like they seem to have a weakness, test that weakness. I think when it comes to Aaron Glenn on the defensive end, we've seen that the Lions front four can handle the Cowboys offensive line. Allow that to be the matchup. Like be content with that being the matchup and not feeling like you have to get too exotic when it comes down to blitzing, because I think that's where Dak can start to pick you apart. I think he's that good where you give him open windows when you're blitzing linebackers and things like that. Dak's smart enough and he's talented enough to spot those and get the ball to his playmakers, especially someone like CD Lamb, who can, again, working out of the slot, working in the middle of the field, they'll pick you apart all day in that type of matchup.
Yep. Jake Ferguson, their tight end, is second on the team in targets behind Lamb. He's not having, he's a good player, 229 yards, 10.4 yards per catch. So it's not anything that's going to blow the doors off. I wouldn't call him a seam stretcher or anything like that. But like you said, that he can hurt you if they're going to blitz. You got to time it right, in my opinion. Like obviously down and distance matters, but hopefully, because you want to get home on those. You don't get home, and that's where Dak Prescott, he's been playing a long time now. Been a long time since that man was a rookie coming out of Mississippi State. So he picks it up and he's going to make those plays with CD, man, because CD is up there. I put him in the rarefied air receiver category.
I was gonna say he made a statement last year. I think, again, putting his name in that top 5 wide receiver conversation with some of the other big names that we already have there in terms of Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then it was CD Lamb, right? Like that's how good of a year he had last year. And so that's the type of respect that I think you have to give him. And I think it's the type of respect that you have to give Dak as well when you play against him. I know it's fun to poke fun at the Cowboys, especially because they have such high aspirations and they typically seem to fall short of them. But when it comes down to the individual players, those guys are legit, right? And I think that's what the Lions have to take seriously. And I think that's why you haven't heard Dan Campbell and the players talk about this as a revenge game. They are looking at it as straight business. And I think that's the type of mindset that they need to have, because if you start to get too emotional, then potentially you're not executing at a high level and you're so focused on what happened last year that you're not thinking about the play that's in front of you. So it's really exciting. I'm really excited to see how this game plays out. I did my score prediction today. And I'm pretty sure that article will drop sometime in the next couple of days as far as what we predict for the score. But I had the Lions winning 31-17. I think Dallas will still get a couple points here and there because, again, Dak and CD are just that good. But I think the Lions offense continues to roll from what they had last year. And I think they're really going to put a lot of pressure on Dallas in the run game. And I think they're just going to continue to just control pace for most of this game.
Feel you? Yeah, I'm with, I think it's a 30-24 is what I'm going to go with. I haven't put it in my prediction yet. I got to do that for Eric's article. So 30-24. And yeah, you mentioned it. It's a good team still. Like they are very much in the thick of things in the NFC as it stands now. It's still very early, but to your point, I love that Dan Campbell keeps it like that, man. He keeps it just business, or it's about the next one. You start knocking them down and you go back to the controlled fury. Like, cause I think someone asked him, I think it might've been Jeremy actually, if they have any, if they have any more motivation. Dan Campbell's like, I'm always motivated, or whatever he said. Paraphrasing here, but yeah, I'm excited, man. Game of the week. Excited that it's at 4:00 and not another night game, because my goodness. So yeah, let's get it. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So that's pretty much going to do it for this week's Scouting the Opponent. Like we said, if you are watching this video, let us know in the comment section below. Where do you think Where do you think the Lions have the biggest advantage? Where do you think they have some things to worry about? We talked about, again, the Cowboys' run defense definitely looking a little vulnerable, but also touching on the fact that CeeDee Lamb is a threat all to himself. Him and Dak Prescott can absolutely take over a game offensively. So what did you guys see from some of the clips we talked about, or what are some of the things that you've seen from the Cowboys so far this season that has you concerned? What are some things that have you optimistic, and why you think the Lions might be able to take advantage? And yeah, if you have a score prediction, always feel free to throw that in the comment section as well. We'd love to see those from you guys as well. And like always, if you are looking for any more Detroit Lions content, all you have to do is head over to pridedetroit.com. There are new articles being uploaded over there all the time. And if you want to continue to see video content from us over here on YouTube, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Definitely hit a like for this video. All those things help us out immensely, and they continue to make it easier for you to find our content when you do come to YouTube. So thank you guys for all your support. We appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. I'm Miko. He's Morgan, and we'll be sure to catch you guys in the next one.